Actually, that's D-R-O-S-O. D-R-O-S-O-P-H-I-L-A. Drosophila melanogaster. Cool. Good. And we see a lot of times that in humans especially, and many other animals, that there is there's a chromosomal basis of sex determination. So we're not the only ones that do this XY fact. This is something that you see with a lot of different creatures, right? But I think for sure that we know that females are XX and males are XY, correct? Okay, perfect. Which means the fact that you're a boy or a girl really is based on your dad, what your dad gave to the show, the party, what he brought to the zygote, right? Did he bring the Y or did he bring the X? Which of course is extremely by chance. Okay, cool. Usually, what have you noticed about sex-linked genes? They're on the what chromosome? Okay, good. And usually for females to show a recessively linked disorder, they would have to have two little t's, one on each X, correct? For a dominant disorder, they just need one of the big T's. Awesome. I think we know that. Let's talk about this concept of X inactivation. When we think of inactivation, we of course think of turning off something, right? This would occur in females. One of the two X chromosomes is inactivated. This causes the formation of something called a Barr body. What this causes is that at some parts of the body, X number 1 is inactivated, while X2 is inactivated at other parts. So you don't turn off the same X throughout the entire body. Hopefully that makes sense. And the way you form a Barr body is essentially a very, 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 very condensed chromosome. So this is an extremely condensed chromosome. It's so condensed that it is unreadable. It's like taking Campbell and Reese, and don't ever do this because this will break my heart, but taking Campbell and Reese and super gluing the pages together. Like, what does that mean will happen? Okay, you probably won't read it. So yeah, please don't do that, but that would be a good example. I think this is a cute little picture. So I'm going to show it. Work. Let's talk about this concept of linked genes. So we've talked about sex-linked genes. Now let's talk about the rest of linked genes. Okay. We know that for sure each chromosome has hundreds to perhaps thousands of genes. And for sure we could agree, or we could at least say for now, that genes that are located on the same chromosome that have a tendency to be inherited together are called linked genes. Okay. Now I want us to think about this. You know, if you have a chromosome, and remember you do that step where you have the mom and dad's or the mom's copies and the dad's copies, right? The chromatids. You know, in meiosis 1, the homologous pair separates, right? And then in meiosis 2, these two separate. Agreed? Are these two exact replicas? Almost, except for the crossing over part, right? But let's say, imagine this. Let's say that this was from your mom and this was from your dad, and let's say that your mom had red hair and freckles, and I don't know if this is the case, but it's just a good example, so I'm going to use it. Probably the red hair and the freckles would be right there and right there. Which means right there and right there. Right? They would be inherited together because they come as a package deal. Right? They're linked. They're on the same chromosome. Right? Now, here's the one factor that we need to account for. Do you remember in meiosis 1, there was a magic step? Austin, do you remember the magic step of meiosis 1? Oh. Does anyone remember the magic of meiosis 1? Test is on Friday, right? This is like the key. This is like if you knew anything from chapter 13, you'd know this fact. You do what in prophase 1? Now I'm going closer. Sorry, what? That's in S phase. That's before meiosis starts. You cross over. You cross over in meiosis 1, right? Now, I want everyone to be paying very close attention. Joseph Tessimer. Okay, very good. Let's imagine, remember when you do crossing over, is it these two that cross over? No, it would be the mom and the dad, the homologous pairs, right? The mom and dad cross over. Let's say your dad doesn't have freckles or red hair. So it would make sense that if you cross over like right here and right here, you would be crossing over to places that are not identical, right? So you run the likelihood of not inheriting, hopefully you're paying close attention, you run the likelihood of not inheriting that pair is a total package because of crossing over. So crossing over can affect this idea of how linked something is. No? A little confusing. Let me show you Morgan's next experiment.
So is that how only people that have red hair with no freckles? Vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, the tendency of these two to not occur as a package would really be all about how close or how far apart they are on the same chromosome. The closer they are, then the more likely they should be inherited as a package. Right? It's like saying, if I lose my keys, since they're all connected, if I lose one, I'm probably going to lose them all. Right? Because they're as a package. But here, because I'm a baller today, got the keys to the Mustang in the pocket. If I lose these, do I necessarily have to lose these? No, because they're not as a package. Okay, so this would be like crossing over, right? These would have to go together. These sets would not necessarily have to go together. The reason behind this fact would be because they are on the same chromosome. You know, you could assort things independently if they're not connected. Right? I can assort my keys independently because they're not connected. But what if they were connected? Could I sort them independently? No, you get one, you get the entire package, right? Do you follow the logic of like just what the idea of independent assortment means? This concept that if you break things up, they independently assort because they're not connected. But what if they are connected because they're on the same chromosome? You get one, probably getting the other. Unless crossing over takes that away. Crossing over would unlink your genes, perhaps. It would make what we call recombinant chromosomes. So let's talk about that next. What he saw also in this experiment was he saw that non-parental phenotypes were produced. In this specific case, that would have been the gray vestigial and the black normal. They usually occurred as a package, and usually you had gray normal and you had black vestigial, but now you have these two unique types, right? These would be your non-parental phenotypes that were produced. And this event happens because of something called genetic recombination. Which is the production of offspring with combinations of traits that are different from either parent. Going back to his little experiment and that picture, and what this is saying, what he's building is he's building this concept, and what we're building is this idea that you can have babies with traits that don't exclusively look like the mom, like the dad, but they look like a mixture of mom and dad. Like literally, if you go back to his experiment, and I'll go back to the notes in just a second, but you'll look, and you had the entire way through wild type normal wings, right? You had gray normal and black vestigial. Do you see a point above this line where you had anything different than that? They were always like that, correct? And now look, you have a chance, albeit it's not a 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. It's actually, what is that? That's like a very small percent of the time, right? You have the potential to make something a little different. Now, do these two match any which parent along the way? The gray vestigial black normal, that's never seen in the entire experiment. But is the fact of having gray, is that seen somewhere? How about vestigial? Is that seen somewhere? So usually what it is you would expect gray normal, black vestigial to occur is a dual set, right? You got this or you got that going on. But now you kind of got a mixture of these two. And how could that ever happen? This idea of recombination. This idea that you can take chromosomes, do crossing over, so they don't look identical to what you started with, right? It's like saying, here's an application for, okay, Caleb. We all know Caleb, right? Good kid. What if I took his application like this, and I tore it? I took my review for chemistry, I tore it, and I pasted the two on top of each other. Would this look like my normal review? Would this look like his application for college? No, so I won't do that, right? But I would be making recombinant papers, right? Combinations that didn't exist until I did that. So that crossing over can allow you to have unique combinations of stuff. Because as you could agree, imagine if I sent in his little form back to his college and it had nothing about